Hey everybody, welcome back. Hopefully you and your family are doing well and everything's going good for you. Thanks for tuning in. So today I want to talk to you about Dr. Erickson. I know you're probably thinking, hey Rob, you've already talked about Dr. Erickson and his partner. Why are you talking about him again? And the reason for that is because I think the first time I spoke about them, I left a lot out, and you'll notice in my comments on that video, I updated a little bit. But I want to circle back because I think it's a complex conversation, and I think that it deserves a little bit of attention as well. So I wanted to do that. But before we start, let's kind of look at the numbers. So global deaths, we're looking at 307,000. That's gone up about, I don't know, I refreshed it yesterday, so I want to say it's at least 7. It was under 3 yesterday. So that's 7,000 deaths. I know there's a big jump in some countries. Today I was watching the news. And total confirmed infections, we're at about 4.5 million. Remember when that was under 1 million? Remember when it was like 100,000? It's going up fast. It's pretty incredible how quickly it's growing. I mean, our curve is still, whoop, whoop, that's still pretty steep. So that's what we're looking at right now. So let's get into it with Dr. Erickson. Just fascinating, right? When you look at this, and it's very polarizing. So whatever side of the fence you're on, I get it, and I can argue both sides, but I think that there's certain things I disagree with them on from a factual standpoint, but it's a complex, very nuanced argument, right? So I understand where they're going with it, and I understand the destination. I just think that to get there, they could have gone a different route. That's basically, if you wanted to stop the video now, that in a summary is where I'm going with this, right? But let's get into specifics because I think that's important here. And I wish they'd chosen other specifics. I struggle on that word for some reason. But anyway, so let's talk about some of these variables. And the first one is that YouTube took their video off of their platform, right? And a lot of people have grabbed onto that, saying, "Oh, this is a conspiracy theory that YouTube would not have taken it down unless there was some truth to it, and that it's a terrible thing that they took it down, and all that." So first of all, I agree that I disagree that YouTube should have taken it down, because it wasn't offensive. It wasn't something that would have caused problems. I don't think. I think it would have stirred debate. It would have caused a lot of discussions. And I don't see any harm in it. However, YouTube, just like all these social media platforms, they're allowed, because they're a private company, to do whatever they want, basically. So they can take it down. So this is what I agree with. I agree a private company can take it down. Okay, so that small part, I agree with. Should they have taken it down? I disagree with, and here's why. Well, first of all, before we get into here's why, I totally disagree, and I think you're gonna be with me on that. Let's take a look at the comments that we got from YouTube. So a company spokesperson issued a statement saying the video was pulled because the content contradicted, now this is important, contradicted the guidance of the local health authority. Local, I think, might have been a stretch here, but anyway, let's continue. So the quote from YouTube is, "We quickly remove flagged content that violate our community guidelines." I don't know exactly what the details of the community guidelines are, but I would assume they're reasonable, including content that explicitly disputes the efficacy of local health authority recommended guidance on social distancing that may lead others to act against that guidance. And then he goes on, it says, "However, content that provides sufficient educational, documentary, scientific, or artistic content is allowed. For example, news coverage of the interview with additional context. From the very beginning of the pandemic, we've had clear policies against COVID-19 misinformation and are committed to continue providing timely and helpful information at this critical time." So what they're saying there is, if I get it right, and correct me if I don't, what they're saying there is they believe that the health authorities have said one thing, and Dr. Erickson and his partner here have said something that contradicts that. So therefore, within their policy, that violates their policy, so they're going to take it down. And I think that what happened there was some complaints from, and I forget who it was. Remind me in the comments if you remember. But a fairly big institution complained, and of course YouTube then took a look at that and went, "Oh, yeah, nope, gone," right? So that's generally what happened there. And so I don't necessarily disagree if you're a private company and you have rules of engagement and somebody violates those rules. You can do whatever you want. You're a private company. We have the right not to use YouTube. We have the right to start another company that competes with YouTube. We have all our rights, right? So nobody's violated rights, right? It's not like YouTube is a government platform. Even then, right? They could kick you off. So there's that. Should YouTube have done it? That's another question, I think, right? Should YouTube be an area where you can say whatever you want and have freedom of speech, like you could go out on the street and say whatever you want? Perhaps, but that's not what it is, right? So I think there's that misunderstanding of what YouTube is. It is, they're not going to allow anything, right? And of course, there's certain things that I think most of us would agree that shouldn't be on there, like, you know, anything that promotes hate crimes or any of that other ugly stuff that we want nothing to do with, right? I think that there's a fair argument for that. One of the things that makes me a bit concerned, however, is that when we talk about the health authorities, in this case, and in some other cases, we may be talking about health authorities that are not local necessarily, that are like the World Health Organization, that the U.S. has stopped funding because we no longer really see them as a truthful authority, right? I think that there's concerns there. And so, you know, I don't want to get into that too deeply because we're going to go down into a rabbit hole there. But if they're removing content based on what the WHO says they should do, right? If you contradict the WHO, and the WHO receives funding from China and other countries, then, and I think the primary viewership of YouTube, and correct me again if I'm wrong on this because I could be, I'm assuming that the majority of viewers are in the US. So if you connect those dots, I think there could be a risk there. Now, it's a bit of a stretch. I'm getting into some, and I'd hate getting into that conspiracy theory type stuff, but I do have a slight concern with those facts, right? And check my facts, please, because those could be, you know, if it's not correct, it's very close, right? So there's that. There's that. So I think just to clear it up, if your content is removed from YouTube, that does not necessarily mean that it's true. It probably means that YouTube didn't like it. It probably means it violated their community guidelines, and they have the right as a private company to remove it. That does not validate the content, okay? So we cannot say that it was true based off of that. And a lot of people are saying that. I just don't think that's a good argument, okay? Okay, so that's one of the big things. Okay, so the second big thing that they said that I 100% disagree on, and I'm not a scientist, you know, or anything like that. So if you've got factual data on this that contradicts what I'm going to say, please put it in the comments below. I'd love to really dive into that a little bit more deeply. But Dr. Erickson says pretty clearly, and he doesn't back off of this very much in future interviews, and you'll notice that on some of the things that he said initially, he's kind of added more clarity to, you know, and changed it a little bit because he was criticized on some of the extrapolation and stuff like that. But on this one, it's staying pretty solid, and I totally disagree with it. So the statement is, immunity declines during social distancing. So they're saying, oh, it's very unhealthy for you to remain at home because it's going to, you know, weaken your immune system because you're not getting exposed to all the germs and the bugs out in the real world. And you're in this like little petri dish at home and you're sheltered in this bubble. And therefore you're just setting yourself up to get more sick. No, you're not, right? Even I know that that's not true. And so that's a red flag for me because I am about as novice as it gets when it comes to science, right? There's a couple things I'm not good at. Okay, there's more than a couple. There's a bunch of things I'm not good at. Math is one thing. I'm not very good at math, right? So don't quiz me on math. Second thing, science. I love science. I think it's some awesome thing to get into, but I'm not very good at it. But I know that that's not true, right? Like it makes no sense. I'm out there digging in my garden, right? I'm out in my backyard. My hands are I'm up to my elbows in dirt, right? I got germs all over the place. Like, have you seen my personal hygiene? Like, I got a lot of germs going on here. So I don't think that my immune system is weakening, right? Because I'm not out there walking the streets with the masses and people are not sneezing in my face, right? Sure, maybe I would get exposed to more flu and more things like that more quickly, but my immune system doesn't decline rapidly like that. And plus I'm getting exposed to all sorts of microbes and whatever else things out there that are doing that for me. So total baloney. I'm sorry. I'm calling it on that one. Total baloney. If you don't believe me, let me read to you what a real scientist has to say about this, right? I'm not calling them not real scientists. That wasn't where I'm going with it. I respect Dr. Erickson and his partner, but I'm not, so that's what that meant. I didn't mean to make it sound otherwise. That sounds weird. But anyway, right, I'm being respectful here because they seem like smart guys. And I do agree with some things, not the way that they're getting there, okay? So Dr. Jennifer Caston, MD, MSc, Oxon, MSc from London, a pathologist with degrees in infectious disease, epidemiology, mathematical modeling of epidemics, and fieldwork in epidemic control, stated in response to Dr. Erickson's claim the world is absolutely teeming with microbes. You're coated in them. Your house is coated in them. They enter your body with every breath you take and everything you eat, right? Your immune system is getting a perfectly adequate workout. You're just restricting your exposure to a handful of things, respiratory pathogens, for example, for a very short period of time, period, okay? So if you don't believe me, believe her. Look her up, Jennifer Caston, Kasten, okay? And I just picked one of many. She sounds legit. I'm sure she is. She's well-educated and concise in her answer, and she said it better than I could. But basically, it's baloney, right? You're not going to lose your immune system. It's not going to significantly weaken. You're getting lots of stuff going through you, right? We're basically walking science experiments, right? So, yeah, that's not a problem, okay? So, Dr. Erickson, just drop that one out of your argument because you're going to get lots of criticism for that. It wasn't a good one to put in there. And, I think you need to refine your arguments a little bit to reduce your criticism, especially that one. So just get rid of it. Just remove it from your deck of cards. You've already got some good stuff going on there. That's not one of them for sure, okay? Other things I've heard is with the counts that we're getting for people that are infected and that die of COVID-19 in the hospitals, there's some reference to doctors are being pressured to add COVID-19 to the death certificates. Now, this sounds conspiracy theory to me, but it could be true, right? So if you look at the U.S. healthcare system, and I don't want to get into who's got a better healthcare system because that's debatable as well, and that's not really what this video is all about, but I could do a video on that one day. There is a monetary element to this, right? So this could be an opportunity for people to make money. So if you say, well, they died of pneumonia, are you going to get as much money as in your business as if they die from COVID-19, right? One of those cases, you're probably making more money. So that can influence what you write down. Okay, so I agree. I agree that could happen. And I would believe that it does happen. I would believe that monetary influence makes us do things that are probably not necessarily in the benefit of the general public or society. Sure, yeah, I mean, it happens all the time. So it's not a far stretch to see that could happen, okay? No problem. But what I would like to see on this argument, if we think that's happening, well, who's doing that, right? Which hospitals are doing that? Who's doing it? why are they doing it? Can we outline that a little bit more? You know, is this something new? Is this just happening now, or does this happen throughout history, right? Is this happening in other countries or just the US, right? I'd like to get a little more detail about that, right? What are the financial incentives for coding something COVID-19? How does that work as opposed to other stuff? Because I can tell you what I'm seeing in, don't touch my face. Sorry, I'm getting better. What I'm seeing in other countries is, you know, people die of pneumonia and stuff like that, and we're seeing that being documented, and we're saying, no. You should say they died of COVID-19, so we know that COVID-19 was the influencer here. We don't care if they died of heart attack or something like that, and that's bad to say. And yes, there's things to talk about there, but what we care about is really we're trying to measure this whole COVID-19 thing and trying to figure out what the impact is and how to control it and stuff like that. So that's why we're moving in that direction. Is that the best thing to do? I don't know. Are we losing important data points by erroring on the side of saying it was COVID-19? Maybe. I'm not a scientist. Perhaps. I hope someone figures that out. But I think it's going both ways, right? Where maybe people are dying of their original complication. So maybe they have asthma. And I don't know if you can die from, yeah, you can die from asthma, right? Or maybe they have a weak heart or something like that, and they die of a heart attack, but they were on the ventilator for COVID-19 treatment. So which is it, right? I would probably say, yeah, say it's COVID-19 because those are the stats we're interested in. So I don't know. Then there's some discussion around Sweden's approach. And I think that this is kind of debatable, right? And I'm not quite sure what side of the fence I'm on here exactly, but I don't think it's a good argument because when we're looking at different countries, we're seeing different behaviors. Let's say Canada, for example. Canada is probably closer to Sweden than the US is. So when I look at Canada, where I am right now, everybody's spread out already. Everybody is keeping their distance quite a bit. Especially, you know, and the cities aren't that big either. So when we compare it to the US, there's more people in California than there is in Canada, right? So that's the population density that we're looking at. So even if we all get up and go to the beach tomorrow, it's not going to be as bad as it would be, let's say, in California. So there's that, right? And I think that's an important factor to think about is what's the population density look like? What does the housing look like? How close are we all living together, right? What's our average square foot of our dwellings, right? All those things matter as far as, you know, the R0 for this disease. And so that's something to look at. With Sweden, I think it's also kind of early to be able to say, yeah, that system works, or that process that they followed works, and that's what everybody should be doing. I think it's too early to say that, really. You know, it's going to be really interesting to see who came out on top here, but, you know, I think it's a bit too early yet to tell. So the other thing that we see here is Sweden has only twice the population of Norway and five times the deaths per population unit. So that's interesting, right, as well. There's some really bizarre stats that were thrown out here, and I think there's some magic being done there, and I think that we need to be careful with that. What I'd like to see organizations like the WHO and the CDC do, which would be actually useful, is provide consistent stats and terminology, because we have things like the death rate, the mortality rate, all these things that people are throwing around like they mean the same thing. They don't, right? So sometimes we're measuring number infected by number of deaths. Sometimes we're measuring total population by number of deaths. Totally different things, right? So I think it would be nice if we all got on the same page, right? And when we're measuring things by per population unit, or per capita or whatever it is, we need to be, you know, apples to apples, not oranges to oranges. So I would like us to pick a metric, whatever the heck that is, and just stick with that. I think that would be helpful. And then we can actually apply that across the board to these different countries that are doing different behaviors and actually chart it and say, what does that look like? And if you've got a chart that shows that already, I'd love to see it. So just put it down below if you don't mind. That'd be great. So those are some of the things that I didn't talk about last time very much. And and we've talked about the other things, right? We've talked about the extrapolation of taking a small sample size that has some bias and applying that to the whole country, blah, blah, blah. Everybody's talking about that, okay? And they've changed their tune a little bit with that as far as the testing and all that goes. And that's all good. I think we've beaten that to death. And I think that there's, excuse me. And I think there's some, you know, some correction being made there, which is good. But having said all that, right, and I think the real point of this video is to talk about where they were going with all of this. They were going to say, and they're saying with their argument, that when do we get back to work? When do we get back to normal? And really trying to drive towards that. Oh, itchy nose. I touched my face again with both hands, double bad. They want us to kind of say, okay, this whole social distancing thing is not necessary. Let's just go back to our daily lives. The hospitals are empty. We can handle this. That's basically what they're saying. I'm summarizing, right? Sounds great. You know, I want to go travel. I want to be making travel videos for all of you rather than these COVID videos, right? But a lot of people would disagree with that. However, I get it. I get where they're going. They want it to be back to normal. The sad news is we're never, ever going back to normal, right? And I think that's what very few people are actually thinking about. The world has dramatically changed. People have bolted plexiglass in front of the counter so you don't breathe on them when they're serving you pizza, right? Those shields are not going away. Nobody's taking those down, right? Those are there forever, right? There's companies that have closed that are not going to open up. There's people that have lost their jobs that need to get new ones. There's companies that have changed their product line and services to something else, and they won't go back because they won't need to. There's a whole bunch of things that are changing and will continue to change that are never going to go back to the way they were, right? Some of you are working from home right now. You're never going back to your office, right? It's just not happening. Some of you will, sure. Some of it will come back a little bit, right? For sure, over time, gradually, yeah. But we're never, ever going back to the way it was. And that's really hard for people to get their head around. We are in a state now, just like World War II and all the other world wars, right? We're in a state now. This is a global, massive, life-changing event that we're going through. And I realize for many of you, this is the first one of its nature. But trust me, that's what it is. And it's not even, we're just starting really down this road. And I think a lot of people are saying, okay, we're almost done. It's almost all over. I think Dr. Erickson and his colleague there are one of those people, right? Where they're like, okay, what's the big deal? Let's get back to it. And yeah, I would agree. I would like to get back to it. And I think that we're moving in that direction. I think that we're going to get back outside soon in a very slow phased approach. And some countries are going to do that faster than others, like Sweden, right? And other places faster than others. But there's no back to normal. That we have to kill that idea, get rid of that idea, because it's not going to be normal. And even if you wanted to, even if you don't believe that the coronavirus or COVID-19 is a real thing, you know, it doesn't matter, because the rest of the world does, and people are dying, and it's not going to be back the way it was. Even once we get over this, let's say we get a vaccine tomorrow. And I know that we usually have amnesia when it comes to doing the right thing. But even if we have a vaccine tomorrow and everybody's healthy and there's zero risk tomorrow, which is not going to happen, but even if it did, we're going to be thinking to ourselves, hopefully, what about the next one, right? Maybe I should leave those plexiglass shields up just in case it comes back. And, you know, even for the flu, I don't want to get sick, so I'll just leave them up, right? Little things like that are going to move us in that direction. What about your company that just now realizes that they don't have to pay the lease for that expensive office? They can get rid of it. Wow, that's great. Now I just saved $500,000 a year, right? That's a good idea. So there's all these things that are going to change and are changing and are not going back. So as much as we would like to hope that it will, it won't. And I'm not saying it's going to be terrible. In some cases, it might be better. We'll see. It's hard to say. But that's where we're going. And so I would, you know, I commend Dr. Erickson in many ways for saying, "Hey, come on, let's go. Let's you know, this is not as bad as we think it is. Let's move in that direction." But I don't think we're doing that. So the back to normal is canceled. It's not back to anything. It's forward with whatever the new reality is, and I think that's for all of us to figure out. And as individuals, we have to figure out how is our life changing. And if you've been laid off, it's changing big time, and we need to adapt. If you have not been laid off yet, then wait a month or two, because the risk is not over. I think many of us are going to be facing ongoing risk for the next 6 months at least, and we just have to be careful and adapt and look for opportunities in this whole thing, because there'll be lots of opportunities. It's not all negative. But anyway, let me know what you think. I know this video would be a little controversial because I know a lot of people really like the work that Dr. Erickson's doing, and I'm not taking away from that at all. I think the debate is good. I think the debate is healthy. I fundamentally disagree, and so do other people, on some of the things they've said. I think they could have had a better argument if they had used different material, but I would like them to keep going with new material that they can validate and prove, and remove some of the things that are being heavily criticized that are just proven wrong. So that would be awesome. If you like this video, please subscribe so you get alerted to new videos. Hit the like button if you like the content. If you've got ideas for other videos that you'd like to see me do, please just put those in the comments below. If I've got anything fundamentally wrong or terribly wrong, let me know as well. I'd love to hear about it. And if you just disagree about any of this, I'd love to hear about that as well, because that will get me thinking and checking out new stuff. So I really appreciate that. Thanks a lot. Stay safe. See you soon.